The wall in front of me splits open with a sound like ice cracking on a frozen lake, and cold air rushes past my face so fast it steals my breath before I can even scream. My leg is trapped under a fallen metal beam. My oxygen reader shows numbers falling fast. The alarm that used to scream through the ship has gone silent, and that silence is worse than any noise, because it means the ship's mind has given up warning anyone. There is no one left to warn. My name is Veska. I am a navigator on a ship called the Hollow Current. A few minutes ago, this ship was steady and quiet, moving through space like it always did. Now it is dying around me, piece by piece, and I am dying with it. I try to pull my leg free, but the beam does not move. Pain shoots up through my body, sharp and hot. My vision blurs at the edges. I think about my crew, scattered somewhere in this broken ship, and I wonder if any of them are still breathing. The crack in the wall grows wider. I can hear the metal groaning, stretching, ready to tear open completely. When that happens, everything in this corridor, including me, will be pulled into open space in less than 2 seconds. I close my eyes. I try to think of something peaceful, something to hold on to in my final moment. But before I can find that peace, something huge slams into the wall in front of me. It is not part of the ship. It is a person. A human. I have heard about humans before, in old trade stories and warnings passed down through many years. My teachers called them fragile, short-lived, but dangerous in ways that have nothing to do with strength. I never understood what that meant until this exact moment. He is holding a piece of metal plating against the widening crack, pressing his whole body against it like a living wall. He does not wear a proper suit made for our ship. His suit is patched, uneven, built for speed, not comfort. The glass of his helmet has a long crack running across it, and I can see his breath fogging the inside. "Hold still," he says, his voice crackling through my comm channel. I'm not great with a foam sealant gun, so this might look messy. I stare at him, confused, my mind slow from pain and fear. "You are bleeding," I say, watching dark liquid gather at the edge of his cracked helmet. "Yeah," he says, grunting as he pushes harder against the plating. Cabin pressure does that sometimes. I do not understand why he is here. Humans live short lives compared to my people. Every second matters more to them than it does to us. And yet here he is, spending his precious time, his blood, his strength, to save someone he has never met. My people do not do this. We are taught to calculate. We weigh the cost of a rescue against the value of a life. It sounds cold when spoken aloud, but it has kept my people alive for many generations. Calculation over emotion, logic over risk. This human is doing none of that. He simply saw someone in danger and moved toward her without stopping to think about the cost. The foam canister in his other hand hisses loudly, spraying thick gray material across the crack in the wall. It is not neat. It is uneven, lumpy, almost childish looking, but it works. The howling wind slows, then fades into a soft whisper, then stops completely. My suit chimes softly. Pressure inside the corridor begins to stabilize. "There," he says, sliding down the wall until he is sitting beside me, breathing hard. "Sorry, it looks like a child made that seal. It's not my best work." I let out a sound that is half laugh, half sob. 3 minutes ago, I was seconds from death. Now I am sitting beside a stranger who bled to save my life, and I do not know what to say to him. "Why?" I finally ask, my voice shaking. "Would you risk so much for someone you do not know?" He looks at me, and there is no anger or pride in his expression. "Just simple honesty. You were alive," he says, "and I could reach you. That's kind of the only rule that matters." Before I can respond, a loud bang echoes through the corridor. The lights flicker, then die completely, leaving only the dim emergency glow along the floor. "That's not good," he mutters, pushing himself up despite his injury. "We need to move. This section isn't stable anymore." He reaches down and grips the fallen beam pinning my leg. I watch in disbelief as he braces his feet against the wall and pulls with everything he has. Metal groans. My leg throbs with pain as the beam shifts, just slightly, but enough. "Push," he says through gritted teeth. I do, using what little strength I have left. My leg slides free, and I gasp from the sudden release of pressure, pain flooding through my nerves like fire. "Good," he says, letting the beam fall back down with a heavy crash. "Can you stand?" "I do not know," I admit honestly. He does not hesitate. He wraps one arm under mine, taking most of my weight onto his own body, even though I can see him wincing with every movement. "Then we'll figure it out together. Lean on me." We move slowly down the corridor, stepping over broken panels and sparking wires. Every few seconds the ship shudders violently, and I brace myself for another wall to give way. My mind keeps replaying his words. You were alive, and I could reach you. It sounds so simple, yet it goes against everything I was taught. My people are taught to protect the group first, to think of survival in numbers, not individuals. A single life, weighed against the risk of losing more, is often seen as an acceptable loss. But this human did not calculate anything. He simply acted. What is your name? I ask, trying to distract myself from the pain in my leg. Daniel, he says, guiding me around a fallen support column. Daniel Whitfield. I'm part of the rescue team that answered your ship's distress signal. There is a rescue team? Hope flickers weakly in my chest. Small one, he says. Just me and one other person, actually. We got separated when the ship started breaking apart. I told her to head toward the escape pods while I checked for survivors in this section. You came into a dying ship, alone, to look for strangers, I say slowly, still trying to understand this. When there's a chance someone might still be alive in there. Yeah, he says, like it is the most obvious thing in the world. That's the job. We reach a junction where two corridors meet, and Daniel stops, scanning both directions with a small device strapped to his wrist. The device beeps steadily, showing a faint blue light pointing to the right. This way, he says. Escape pods are close. We just need to get through this next section without the whole thing falling apart around us. As if the ship itself heard his words, another violent shake rattles through the floor beneath us. Sparks rain down from a broken panel above, and somewhere deep in the ship, something explodes with a dull roar that I feel more than hear. Move, 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 Daniel says, pulling me forward faster despite my injured leg. We stumble through the corridor as pieces of the ceiling begin falling around us. My heart pounds so hard I can hear it in my ears. Daniel keeps one arm around me, using his other hand to shield us both from falling debris, taking small hits meant for me without complaint. Finally, we reach a wide door marked with glowing symbols I recognize as an escape pod entrance. Daniel presses his hand against a panel beside it, and the door slides open with a hiss. Inside, a young woman is already seated at the controls, her fingers moving quickly across a display. She looks up sharply when we enter, relief flooding her face. Daniel, thank goodness, she says, her voice tight with worry. I was about to come looking for you. Found one more survivor, he says, helping me into a seat and strapping me in carefully. Veska, this is Ellen. She's the reason we're getting out of here at all. Ellen gives me a small, tired smile. Nice to meet you, even if the circumstances are terrible. Buckle up tight, this is going to be a rough launch. Daniel drops into the seat beside me, finally letting himself breathe heavily, his hand pressing against the wound near his ribs. I notice for the first time how pale he looks, how much blood has soaked into his suit. You are hurt badly, I say, worry creeping into my voice. I'll live, he says, though his voice sounds weaker than before. Mostly worried about getting us out of here in one piece first. Ellen's hands move fast across the controls, and the pod begins to hum with power. Through the small window, I can see the hollow current breaking apart in the distance, pieces of it drifting silently into the darkness of space. Launching in 3, Ellen says. 2, 1. The pod shoots away from the dying ship with a force that presses me back into my seat. I watch through the window as the wreckage grows smaller and smaller, until it is nothing more than a scattered field of metal and light against the black of space. I turn to look at Daniel, who is watching me with a tired but genuine smile despite his pain. You did not know me, I say quietly. You did not know if I was worth saving, and still you came. Everyone's worth saving, he says simply. That's not something you calculate, it's something you just do. I think about my people, about the careful math we use to decide whose life matters more in a crisis. I think about how different this human's choice was, how it came not from logic, but from something deeper, something that did not ask questions before acting. Ellen glances back at us, smiling gently. He's like this with everyone, by the way. Drives me crazy sometimes, but I wouldn't want a partner who thought any differently. I look out at the stars stretching endlessly beyond the window, my leg throbbing, my heart still racing from everything that happened. But for the first time since the alarm started screaming, I feel something close to peace. I have read stories about humans being fragile, short-lived, and unpredictable. I still do not fully understand them. But I understand this much now. When the universe was seconds away from taking my life, it was a human who decided that was simply not going to happen, and reached in anyway, without asking what it would cost him. And as our small pod drifts safely toward the stars, carrying the three of us away from the wreckage behind, I realize that some choices are not about calculation at all. Some choices are simply about reaching out, when someone else cannot reach back.